killing brush. I got him at gunpoint.
They're pulling them out.
911. Advise ready for camp.
God!
Welcome to another episode of War Stories. I'm Tom.
And I'm Chuck.
And we're back for this week's episode. It's been a hell of a week for law enforcement. We'll get into that in our dedications section. Yeah. But we've got a good guest for you this week. I think you'll enjoy. Got some great. I think shorter stories, but instead of one long one, we're gonna have a couple of things to talk about. So, Chuck, why don't you tell us who is our guest this week?
Yeah, so we have Rick here. He wrote in. He's a corrections officer. Has been one for 8 years. At a detention center. I'm going through a lot of it and bleeping it out. He started his career in a juvenile detention center, then quickly moved to the adult side. So he's got a wealth of knowledge, experience in his 8 years, and I wrote in, and I believe you're a lieutenant, sir.
Yes, that's correct.
Wow.
We won't hold that against you.
Hey, I used to work.
That's right. Yeah. Well, if you've listened to this show long enough, for those of you who've listened long enough, I don't know, Rick, if you have, but my sergeants hated me because I used to call them base coaches, and and inevitably one wouldn't know what I was talking about, and they'd say, "What is that?" And I'd say, "Well, you're wearing the uniform and you're on the field, but you're not actually playing."
Yep.
So I
try to every now and again.
Yeah, but there's a certain point where you reach that level of command staff, and you go out to play, and they get mad.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
Yes, they do.
So, anyway, so tell us kind of how you got into corrections, and if you don't mind, I don't know how much you want to give out about the kind of facility you work in or the part of the country you're.
Oh no, that's fine.
Yeah, okay, good.
So I work in Northwest Mississippi, right outside of Memphis. So we have a lot of, crossing over the border to commit crimes. But I got started. I had planned on being in law enforcement a long time ago, and unfortunately got a late start at it. And I started out in juvenile, and it was okay. Mm-hmm. On my shift, they wouldn't act up on my shift. They would wait till the next shift came in, because we had what's the word I'm looking for? They knew what to expect when we came to work.
You had a reputation.
well, kind of, but more or less they knew that when we came to work, this was going to happen. This was structure. We had structure on our shift, and the other ships didn't, and they acted good for us. They, and then next shift come on, and we go for our days off, come back, and we'd have to all right, we're back now.
It's like sending your kids to live with grandma for 2 or 3 days, and then they come back and they act a fool.
Exactly.
Like sending my kids to their mom's house, and then when they come back. And I'm like, what happened? Why do I have a bunch of heathens?
I was going to say ex-wife, but I didn't want to poke it.
No, that's fine. It's legit. That's what happens.
Yeah, it is what happens. Anyway.
And it's the same way on the adult side. I mean, they're just bigger kids. I mean, it doesn't matter how old they are. It's the same thing there.
Right.
But I didn't plan on staying in corrections. Planned on starting in the jail, going to the streets, and then work my way up from there. But unfortunately, every time tryouts would come around, something would happen, and I would either pull a muscle in my back. I messed both my hands up. I had tendons repaired.
Your body was conspiring against you.
It really was. And hopefully in a month, nothing's going to act up in a month when tryouts come around again.
So wait a minute. Does your correctional agency also have a patrol division? So you have to test for a different job classification, or are you testing out of your agency entirely to test for a different agency?
No, same agency.
Okay, so you have you have classifications for correctional deputy or correctional officer, and
Right.
then you have classifications for patrol deputy or patrol officer, and
Right.
you just have to request or test to change classifications because it's an entirely different job.
Right.
It's not like some sheriff's departments where all the correctional deputies eventually go out to the street. It's you have to want to.
Yeah.
But even then, those deputies who you're talking about, who like LA County still has to put in their wish list, and some of them never leave. They've made it apparent point now in California that if you don't want to leave, you can give up your right to ever go to the street. You never have to go to the street. It used to be you need to go to the street, and if you don't like it, you can come back. Now they just put it out there up front. If you want to stay here, you can stay here for your career, be a deputy, but work in the jail side. And then if you want to go out, you need to test out. So now a lot of guys are like, no, I'm staying. So now more guys are getting pumped out in like a year.
Honestly, like if you want to stay in the jail, I'm all for it. Stay in the jail because not everybody's fit for patrol. And
I don't want that guy next to me.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like you take a guy who's fit for corrections and he's good with corrections and he likes it in corrections, and you tell him, no, you have to go to patrol, and he doesn't have that mindset.
No.
You know, that's no pinche bueno. That's just
right.
You know.
Now, Rick, do you get to keep your lieutenant spot when you go out?
I would imagine. I was going to say, I would imagine.
No. I will start back over.
That's
and yeah, but
will you keep your like? Do you come in as more of a lateral, and where you come up at an increased step, or do you have to take a severe pay cut?
Actually, the pay from the patrol versus jail lieutenant is I'll actually, once I get out of the FTO process, I'll actually be increasing.
Oh, okay. So that job classification just inherently makes more money then.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. So you got into corrections as a doorway into being a street cop. And then unfortunately for the last 8 years, your body has conspired against you. But you're coming up on a month?
Yeah. In the middle of July, we're having tryouts again.
Okay. And what are your, is it dummy drag?
No. Oh, no.
What's your tryouts?
Push-ups, 1.5 miles, and an agility run. That's it.
Okay.
And me being my age, I only have to do 32 push-ups, 1.5 miles in 16.5 minutes, and 20.8 or something like that for the agility run.
They actually like nerf the qualifications based on age.
Yes, and male or female.
Okay, I'm glad it's working out in your favor, but I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I'm not either. Especially on the, I mean, I don't want to sound bad, but especially on the female side, you know, if she only has to be this strong, can I really depend on her to, you know, depend on her to back me up?
Well, it's the same thing with Bubba Cops. You know, you got a big fat Bubba Cop who lets himself go to shit. And, you know, he can't chase down a bad guy. He can't fight for more than 15 seconds without passing out, you know. I'm sorry. If you can't do the job, you can't do the job. And the standards shouldn't be changed.
Yeah, no, but if they're going to like lower standards, there needs to be a fucking minimum of both men and women have to complete. And it needs to be like, say, if men top scores like 100 push-ups, right? Mm-hmm. Women should have to be able to do at least 50 because that's going to be the bottom of the score for the man to pass, right? So they need to at least complete 50. And I think that's not unreasonable because if you need to have that upper body strength to be able to control a suspect, that's what you kind of need. It's a lower standard, but at least we know it's comparable to the lower standard on the man side. But that's just female top. And I don't know if that's going to be popular opinion, but as being in fights with suspects and knowing how back and wild it can get and how strong other people can be, you need to be able to count on your partner.
Well, here's the thing. When they decided to let women into Ranger School, I don't have a problem with that. I've never had a problem with letting women into Ranger School. What I would have a problem with is if they changed the Ranger School qualifications and criteria so that women could pass it. And that's wrong. A ranger is not a gender. A ranger is a job classification. And if you can't do the job, I don't care what gender you are.
Right. Like a female in my age group only has to do 18 push-ups.
Jesus. That's weak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. So you're testing in a month, and you're hopefully going to go out to patrol. And
I hope so.
Are you do you have friends on patrol? Do you know guys out there? Are they rooting for you? Are they helping you out? Do you feel like, or is it like, screw that guy?
No. Fortunately, we're I wouldn't say we're a huge sheriff's department, but we are, for Mississippi, we are pretty good size. Mm-hmm. But I'm friends with a lot of the command staff up there, which helps.
Yeah,
and
let's face it,
most of the deputies, I know most of the deputies from being there so long. So as long as I can make it through, and I've taken the test before. I tried out years ago for a city agency, mm-hmm. But the two guys they picked were the two that showed up late, didn't finish any of their push-ups or runs or anything. What? They picked those guys. Yeah,
that's weird.
They apparently had tried out, like they maxed out their number of tryouts, I guess, and just got picked.
It sounds like they're politically connected more like.
Yeah, well, most of them up here are. I mean, it's
good old boy network.
Yeah, if there's somebody they want, and they only have one spot open, it doesn't matter who tries out or what that person does. They're going to get the spot. Yeah,
that's why they put the chief's interview, right? The chief can interview people, and just, I like this guy better.
Yep.
Sorry.
Pretty much.
Yeah. That's that. Anyway, so we've been, Chuck and I have been talking about, and we've had people a little bit, but not a lot of people from corrections.
Right.
And so we're very curious, after 8 years and now being a lieutenant, I'm sure you've got, lots to tell. So the floor is yours, man. What are your stories?
All right. I wanted to go through a lot of the funny ones. Like, if I had a nickel for every time I heard I'm not supposed to be here, or y'all are holding me here illegally.
Well, yeah.
Oh my God.
I wouldn't be worried about patrol right now. I would have retired a long time ago.
If I were sent to a year in prison for every time somebody said I was violating their rights,
yep,
I would be spending 200 years in prison.
Oh yeah, at least.
At minimum. Yeah. Just because people don't know their rights, and they think, yeah.
A TV is not a right. TV is a privilege. They seem to think that we have to let them watch TV.
But what's that Police Academy when he's like, you have the right to sing the blues, you have the right to cable TV, you have the right to paint the walls, no loud colors. That's what I mean. People kind of believe that shit.
Yeah. Speaking of painting the walls, our walls have been painted brown a lot.
I'll bet.
Yeah. The walls being painted doesn't bother me as much as having to fight the person that covered their entire body.
Oh, yeah.
In their own feces.
What do you guys think is the compulsion for incarcerated people to lose their fucking minds and rub dookie all over them? I mean, like, seriously, what is it? I can't. I've never been able to come up with.
13th floor.
I'm just wondering if they do the same thing at home.
I mean, I can't imagine they do. Is it the monkeys at the zoo? Like if the monkeys weren't in the zoo and they didn't have people staring at them through the glass, maybe they wouldn't throw poo at the people staring at them. So I'm guessing, like, maybe is it if you put primates under glass, they just instinctively throw poo at the people watching them. I don't
know.
I would surmise to say that they know if they get to the padded cells and they get to the psych facility or the psych level, it's going to be a lot easier. So maybe they're trying to come off as a psych case and need to be segregated or whatnot, because we've had a lot of those in our jails that have, in detention facilities that have been like, claim a certain something, and they're like, okay, well now I need to be a seg and go to a seg cell or a segregated facility or my own room with my own floor type of thing because I don't want to get hurt, and they're just afraid of being in one, jail or prison, and two, maybe they want the cushier atmosphere. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, we had
burritos are better up there.
We had one guy that he was in for it was a sex crime. He was in ASEG, and nobody ever saw him, but he would collect all of his shit and put it in milk containers. Yeah.
Where was he getting the milk containers?
Just from Chow.
But just
And
the little like lunch milk cartons?
Yeah.
Saving it for a snack or what?
That's what he was claiming.
Making his peanut butter?
That's what he was claiming was, he was eating it. So after several years, while he was waiting on a bed at the state hospital, he finally went, and then he came back. Didn't even recognize him, normal person. But when he went to the state hospital, all of his charges got dropped. They got dismissed.
What?
So he played the
system,
game, right?
And went to the state hospital as a freaking 5149.5, and then they dropped the charges, and he stayed there long enough to DTFO, and then when they released him, he was fine.
Yep, 100%.
Wow.
Went to a regular pod and
What
did
were
his
it was
little
his sex crimes?
Yep.
Man. Okay.
Well, we had another one the same.
Oh, go ahead.
The same. We had another one the same way. This guy though, he would sit there and, like, when he came out for rec, he'd get on the phone, not calling anybody, but just punching in numbers. Like, he had lists of numbers, just random numbers. And he claimed he worked for the CIA. He did this, he did that, he invented this, all this stuff. Same thing. Went to the state hospital, came back, completely normal, no charges. Unfortunately, though, he had charges in Texas, so he
They don't give
he
a
had to go to
shit.
Texas. Yeah. They'd be like,
so
all right,
our state hospital was actually in my city.
Mhm.
It was the state hospital for the criminally insane. It was like, I used to tell people, if because we had a prison about 20 miles away, and then we had the state hospital in my city, and people were always publicly talking about in the press or in the papers or at parties about having the prison there. And it was the California Men's Colony, which is like the most minimum almost security facility you could possibly get. It's like
right,
fences and houses, fences and bungalows. It's like almost like Club Fed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So very low security kind of a facility, but still a prison. In fact, one of Charles Manson's like lead followers, Tex Watson, was there for a long time, and they had some decent people housed there, but they were all older. But everybody was worried about somebody escaping from the prison, and I used to tell them, no, you have to worry about somebody escaping from the state hospital, because number one, if they escape from the state hospital, it's not a crime, because the state hospital is a civil commitment, and number two, if somebody escapes from the prison, they're going to steal your car and get the hell out of Dodge as far away as they can. If somebody escapes from the state hospital, they're going to skin you and wear your, make a jacket out of you.
Right.
But these guys, poor guys that worked at the state hospital, guys would get transferred from prison, like you're saying, real bad guys. They'd get there to, 4 guards, shotguns, stab vests, shackles, waist chain, all that stuff. And then they'd get him through the sally port, and the guys with the guns would wait in the sally port, and the state hospital guards would come out and they'd take the shackles off and walk him into the hospital. And then this guy would be free to roam about the grounds as he's like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
These guys were going to lock you down and shackle you. But now that you're on the hospital grounds, you're free to go.
Yep.
Crazy. Literally crazy.
But like when we have to transport these people to court and stuff like that, we don't have firearms. We don't have stab vests.
Really?
So
Yeah,
wait a minute. You're working in a correctional facility,
Uh-huh.
and you have to transport to court,
Right.
ostensibly.
Mhm.
And when you're going from point A to point B in a transport van, they don't give you firearms.
Negative. We have a taser.
Okay.
What the fuck?
Even our jail, where they had the same deal
Right.
as you, they had correctional deputies and
Huh?
patrol deputies, and it was a different classification, different job. But they had guys that had to do the transport, and all
Right.
the transport guys, when they were in the jail, they were not armed. As soon as they left the jail, they would go to the locker, pull out their weapons,
Right.
put their gun belts on,
Mhm.
and they would be armed and drive you to county armed. And they were
Right.
armed the entire time they were out of the facility. That is bananas to me.
I have argued this point for years now.
Is it
And-
because you
and
guys
I've
aren't trained in firearms, or?
Well, how hard is that to fix?
Yeah,
I-
it's not very hard.
I mean, like I
You're
said,
a little
I've-
in service. You have people that are blessed to be the transport guys, and you
Right.
send them to firearms qualification. You get whatever the state certification is to carry a gun, and you let them carry when they're doing transports. I mean, that it's a no brainer to me.
I
Listen,
totally
sheriff. Sheriff. You probably don't listen to the show, but sheriff, come on, let's use our heads.
you know, I don't go shooting a lot with the guys on patrol, but I can go to our shooting facility. And the last time I went with one of the SWAT guys, he was a lieutenant on patrol. I outshot him like incredibly.
Well,
And
you just said
I-
he was a lieutenant on patrol, so that doesn't surprise me.
but he was also on the SWAT team.
He was a lieutenant. Like
Not on SWAT. Not on SWAT. On SWAT, he was just a SWAT member.
really?
Yeah.
So he's not a SWAT lieutenant. He's a team
No.
member who
Right.
just happens to hold the rank of lieutenant.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Wow.
maybe he was having a bad day. I don't know. That's insane. So what are some of the
Oh,
most
no.
violent
It
people you
wasn't
get?
a bad day. Most violent?
Right.
We got 2 murderers in the other day. We get aggravated assault. But see, we don't have attempted murder in Mississippi. We have aggravated assault with means to produce death.
Oh, wow.
But we get those all the time.
But as far as like not just what they did on the outside, I'm talking
Right.
about on the inside. Like when they get to you, because sometimes
We-
the attempt murderers, the murderers, those guys get in the joint and they know the game and they play the game.
Oh, those are our
Sometimes you
best
get
guys.
this, yeah, right. They know the system, but you get
Right.
these like dudes that it's their first time, or they're gangbanger. It's a minor offense. They got something to prove. They get in there, they're losing their fucking minds, and they get violent. What kinds of like violence do you guys see typically? I mean, it's a jail. I know you're going to have people that go sideways, and you're going to have to bring the brute squad.
Right. Fortunately, we don't have that many assaults on officers. It's mostly inmate on inmate. But it's just your typical, throat or attempt to fight. I don't know where they learn to fight at, but they definitely don't know how. We find shanks all the time.
Do people actually
But-
get shanked?
No.
So they make them
think-
and they carry them, but they don't actually use them, at least
Yeah,
in your facility.
The thing, they don't even carry them. They leave them on their racks and in their cells if they're in ADSA. They don't even carry them. It's just
It's like a baby blanket.
yeah, it's like, hey, I got a shank.
See, contrast that with like the prison guards, and they watch
Oh,
out
yeah.
for guys that are taking newspaper and making paper mache
Right.
arrow tips that they're using rubber tubing, and they're firing these, like they're making ballistas and firing
Mhm.
these paper mache arrows at guards and like killing them, or at least
Right.
causing serious bodily injury. So you guys don't have a lot of that then.
No. Fortunately, we keep it pretty clean. I mean, they don't have a lot of stuff. They just break stuff that they know that's not going to be noticed very much and make a shank out of it. I don't know where one got it from, but we found it was one of the long plastic tent stakes that he had
Where'd he get
sharpened
that?
down. I would only assume maybe from one of our road crews that goes out and picks up trash.
Maybe they keistered it and he was like, here you go. Here's my shit's dip stain
well,
fucking.
It was clean. It was clean because he kept it in a shampoo bottle. So,
Well, it was clean after he got it into the facility.
yeah, but we had to cut the shampoo bottle open to get it out. Like it wouldn't even fit through he had to cram it in there. So I don't know what his plans were if he did have to use it. Yeah, a lot of the stuff doesn't make any sense. Like, why?
Have you guys had any like riots?
Attempted.
Do you guys just kick the shit out of all these people? They're just like, nah, we're good. We're gonna stay in line.
Yeah, I have. My rule is ask, tell, make. That's my rule. You get two. You don't get three. You get two, and they know that on my shift. They know that. Now the other shifts, I can't really speak for them, but a lot more stuff happens on those shifts. That's where most of the officers get assaulted, and even then, it's nothing bad. It's they might get kicked in the leg or something like that.
Yeah, but that's like the old mentality, the ask, tell, make that used to be taught in police agencies, and you had a lot less attacks on officers, and things like that. And then as soon as they're like, no, that's too mean. You can't
didn't say
them,
please.
Tell them and make them. You need to ask.
Now
Then get a supervisor, ask some more, and then
ask, beg, plead.
Now we're going to try to go hands-on, and then let's dance for a little bit, and then officers are getting hurt and the attacks on officers are going up because there's no consequences for actions, and it just snowballs. It's the broken window theory. And then you have a place that's like, nah, ask, tell, make. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to tell you, and then we're going to town. That right there is officer safety 101 big time. And I think a lot of agencies need to revert back to going to that style, as long as they're within their policies and stuff and federal guidelines and things like that on use of force, because that's going to reduce officer attacks. And you're seeing it on your shift, and then you go to the other shifts, and they're like, they want to be that cool parent or that cool guard where everything's cool, like let's keep the like the attacks and everything down, let's just have an easy day. Yet they're like, okay, I'm going to exploit your weakness, your kindness, and it's going to be weakness because you're not going to do anything, as we've seen in the past. So they get more rowdy on those, and then yours are like, daddy's back.
Yep.
Well, so I'll tell you. Oh, go ahead, Rick.
So when we come on the shift, one of my officers will come up to me and they'll be like, "Hey, so and so told me he wanted to speak to the lieutenant and asked me who was here." And I told him, and he was like, "Oh, never mind."
See,
they know what my answer is.
They know you.
My answer is no.
That's like
that's my answer.
When mom says go ask your dad, and the kids don't bother because kids know what my answer is going to be. Yep. See, for me, like it's interesting you said that, Chuck, because there's a certain level of like, oh, I'm cool. I'm cool as a fucking cucumber. Like we can get along, we can joke, we can smoke a joke, we can talk shit, we can have good times. It's like my kids. I'm the best dad in the world. I'm super fun dad. But when they piss me off, there is a switch that flips, and I become the biggest asshole they've ever met. And it's funny. I'm working at a job right now where I happen to be working around several felons, and they've paid their debts. They're out there. They just have convictions in their past, and they know what I do. And somebody asked me, they're like, is that unsafe? Do you feel uncomfortable? And I'm like, well, I mean, like, it is what it is, And it's like, well, you're not worried about them, doing anything. I'm like, they can talk all the shit they want. I'm used to that. I said, it's not a big deal. The only big deal is if they try something, and if they try something, I'll fucking murder them. And like I said it so matter of factly, I'm like, try something, you'll die. It's fine. Like.
The crazy thing is
mentality is missing.
Exactly. You got a lot. They reverted away from the type A personality cops and reverted to more of like the college atmosphere cop. It's like,
Right.
okay,
TikTok
yeah,
cop.
we can do this.
Right.
That dumb shit. And my favorite thing was on patrol and things like that. I would get a body and get him in custody. And before, and I'm playing it cool, like, hey, sir, how's it going? And then I stop him. I'm like, hey, just to let you know, this is my vehicle. We're going inside of my vehicle. You try anything fucking stupid, we're going to have problems. And they get out. I'm like, hey, this is my jail facility. X, Y, and Z is going to happen on the inside. Mm-hmm. These are what my boss is going to ask you. If you do something stupid, if you ball up on me, you buck on me, you do something dumb, you're going to be eating pavement very, very hard and very, very fast. And sometimes before cuffs were on, I would tell them, you have one or two ways to go. It's the easy way or the hard way. I'm fine with either. And you say it so calmly, and you're just so like, it's cool. It's
nonchalant.
Whatever.
Right. The guys that are in their ear going, listen, motherfucker, you fuck around.
Exactly.
Fucking that doesn't. Now you're challenging them.
Right.
And the suspect knows, hey, yeah, this guy's a bitch, or he's a boot, or nah, he's just trying to fucking assert his dominance.
Right.
And he's probably going to be a cupcake if I fight him. And I've seen a lot of that happen where the coppers are all like, right off the bat, like they elevate and escalate it fucking goddamn quick that the suspect is like, okay, bitch, let's go. When you're like, hey, bro, calm down. And you relax him and you're like, hey, X, Y, and Z is going to happen. I'm fine with either one. Let me know.
In the jail, Rick,
like,
do you get that kind of street, like respect kind of a, like, do you have to play that game with them or is it? Cause I know in the way fucking dirtbags act inside is different than the way dirtbags act out on the street, because they know what you guys can do versus what we can do on the street. Like there's a difference, right? I mean, you can fuck, it's like nurses can fuck people in ways that no other cop, correctional officer, like, be afraid of nurses. If there's any fucking bad guys listening to this, don't piss. If I'm arresting you, I take you to the hospital for medical, don't piss off the nurse.
Right.
To fuck you up. Legally.
Yep.
And she has fucking medical ways to do it, right? But the same thing applies like in the jail. Like you guys have ways and punishments and, things that you can do to people that when they're inside, they know, oh, you want to fucking have no hot water? You want to have shitty fucking commissary? You want to have this, those kinds of things aren't available to street cops. Street cops is I can either walk away or I can arrest you and beat your ass.
Right. Well, see, my thing is, I don't yell. I don't yell at inmates unless I'm dealing with like a whole pod and I have to yell. I don't yell at them
to get their attention.
If they're standing there screaming at me in front of me, I will start talking to them as quietly as I possibly can. And 9 times out of 10, they shut up because they don't know what I'm saying.
And if you get in a shouting match, like if you lose your temper and get in a shouting match with a suspect or with an inmate, you've lost.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh, absolutely.
I tell my people all the time.
You've lost already.
I tell my people all the time, take your emotions out of it.
Right.
Exactly. Let it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he calls your mom a whore. It doesn't matter.
What's that movie?
Roadhouse.
What if he calls your mom a whore? Is she?
Roadhouse.
Yeah.
I give the Roadhouse speech all the time at work.
I'm going to be nice until it's time not to be nice. And then I'm just going to fucking beat your ass. And I'm not going to feel bad about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of those shitheads probably know as soon as one of these dudes starts getting really quiet, that's probably when it's about to go sideways. Because my partner used to tell me, and I never really picked up on it until he told me. He was like, hey man, like every time we've gotten into a fight, he goes, all of a sudden you get real quiet. And he's like, the next thing I know, homeboy's on the ground, fucking face down, ass up, feet up in the air. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm done talking at that point. Like I've given all these opportunities and I've asked, and then now it's time to make. It's time to get him to comply because we have a lawful arrest and we're not going to sit here and do-si-do all day. We're not going to sit here and dance around because I'm not getting hurt. You're not getting hurt. Only motherfuckers getting hurt is the one who's going to try to hurt us. Right. And he's going to go down and we're going to take him into custody and we're going to take him to jail. So I think a lot of these dudes know, he's getting a lot calmer than he should.
Right.
Maybe I'm going to shut the fuck up and just be like, okay. Dance another day.
And most of the agencies are good about calling us when they have a combative But their definition of combative and our definition of combative must be two totally different things. Because they'll call us, say, "Hey, we're 10 minutes out." So I'll get 6 or 7 of my biggest guys come down there, and I'll open the door up. And I'll say, "Hey, bud, you gonna cooperate with my officers?" And they look back and they go, "Yes, sir."
Well, see, here's the thing. Cool. I will speak from patrol experience, and if you get out on the street, Rick, you'll experience this as well. There is a level of, I just need you to bring the brute squad out. That's it. Like, right. And it's that come to Jesus moment, right? It's what was the Ron White, and he says, "I didn't know how many of them it was going to take to throw me out of the bar, but I knew how many they brought."
Right?
Yeah.
And so to shout out to all the arrestees in my county that I took to jail, who got the brute squad. This is how I did it. If you needed the brute squad and you needed a tune-up, I would make sure that the last thing I said to you before I pressed the intercom switch at the Sally Port was something that clearly was going to fire you up because you've been an asshole the entire time. And
right.
I would say, you could say something like, of all the people I've arrested, you are probably the biggest fucking pussy I've ever met. What, motherfucker?
Yeah.
I have one male and he's combative, and all they hear in the background is this motherfucker piece of shit. And then they would bring out the brute squad. Yep. And this was the time where 6 fucking guys that were all corn-fed freaking football players would surround my car, and I'd get out and I'd smile and I'd look at the guy and go ahead. Have an attitude with them like you had with me, because they will pull you out of this car by the short and curlies. And
that's the way to do it.
Yeah, that's the attitude adjustment. That's you can call it a tune-up, you can call it an attitude adjustment, you can call it a come to Jesus moment.
It's called setting the tone.
Right. Yeah. Command presence.
That's it.
So if there is anybody who's listening to this who works in a jail facility, who might be in charge of a jail facility, you need to listen on the way that Rick does things. Rick has it right. Be like Rick. Do not be like a lot of the agencies that I've pulled into where you're like, "Hey, I've got an aggressive combative. We're going to need a chair. We're going to need to hook him up. And I'm going to need at least 4 guys to come out here and pull him from the back of my vehicle." Right. He is not coming out. He is not complying. We're trying not to get into a use of force because we're patrol and we've already got into one. So we are trying to get him to go as peacefully as possible. Can you please bring out? And then they bring out like the short females and the short males. And you're like, fuck me. Yep. And then shit goes sideways. Don't be like that. Be like Rick. Be the one who brings out his biggest boys and is like, "Okay, let's go." And they're going to be like, no, I'm okay.
I do the same thing when they bring combative females in, though.
Yeah.
I'll bring.
Oh my God.
I'll bring 2 of my females out there, but I still bring my guys.
Right.
Because my females, no, they're not going to be able to handle.
No, they're there for talking and patting down
and strip searches. That's it.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
They're like they're token.
Yeah, and some of the craziest suspects and strongest realistically have been females.
I'd rather fight a guy.
I've said this on. If you don't think that a little woman or an elderly person, it can be violent and fuck you up, you have clearly never tried to hold a cat when it doesn't want to be held.
Exactly.
It's. I had a sergeant who all he did was reach across the seatbelt this lady in. And when he brought his hand back off of seatbelting her, she reached out and she bit the blade of his palm so hard she would not let go. He thought he was going to lose a chunk of his hand. And again, there are guidelines. Police work mostly is like the pirate. Police work is mostly like the Pirates Code, right? It's not so much of a rule book; it's more of like guidelines. And
a lot of gray areas.
Yeah, you don't hit. You typically don't punch women in the face. You typically don't hit people when they're handcuffed and seatbelted in the back seat of the car. But when they're biting a chunk out of your flesh, all bets are off. And he just hammer fisted her nose. And you know how anybody who's been punched in the nose knows, like the blood gushes and your eyes swell up and you tear. and everything like stars, and she let go.
Yeah.
Because that could have been mayhem. That's a serious felony.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
you don't know what she's got. You don't know she could have anything.
Yeah, exactly. And so it kind of is one of those things where you can't underestimate anybody.
Right.
No. And I wish they would still teach that in like law enforcement and the academies and things like that.
Right.
They always asked, "Are you going to get into use of force?" When I was in the academy, "You going to get into use of force with someone in a wheelchair?" I was like, "No, they're in a fucking wheelchair. Just kick it over." And they laugh and they're like, well, "That's the wrong answer." But you're going to have to get into use of force with someone in a wheelchair eventually. Like it's just going to happen.
The wheelchair over,
or step away.
So many times I've seen people underestimate people with either
your baton in between the spokes and flip them.
But like
Indiana Jones,
it's crazy.
But that's the thing.
I wish they would
like,
teach that.
There's so many things, and it sounds like, Rick, does your agency? I mean, what is your policy on documenting use of force? How you can use it? Like, do they sweat you pretty hard, or is it pretty much as long as you're within the rule book and you're not coloring outside the lines, we'll back your play?
Yeah, they pretty much back. They pretty much back us up on them.
That's good.
Now, if it's just you walked up to the guy and punched him in the face, they're gonna be like, I think we need some more training. But
there's sometimes where that's the use of force and that's acceptable. But if that's your MO and you just walk up and punch people in the face, yeah, we probably need some new training.
Yeah.
But
we have typical, anybody there, they have to write a report, even if they didn't do anything. If they saw it, they have to write a report.
Supplemental.
And then the person that actually used the force or people, we have a use of force form that we fill out that documents the use used, the longevity, who all was there, who was notified, where the use was used at on the body. I mean, just it's a lot of information. Yeah, pretty much.
That's pretty simple. Like that's pretty.
And I filled out a bunch of them. So
it's a form, right?
I wish we had a form.
Type of force, location. I get it. I understand why people have to document it, and literally for liability reasons.
Right.
It's smart. I actually went to and then brought the course to my agency and was the instructor for our department, but I went to a use of force documentation course. And it was taught by one of the most brutal agencies in California. And I only, yeah, it was. It was taught by the sheriff's department, and I won't say which one. And I'll tell you this: they had a policy where they had an entire division dedicated to writing checks, and that sounds weird, but what happened is they'd like a deputy would drive through somebody's fence on a pursuit and destroy somebody's fence and chasing a suspect, and then run over their prize petunias that grandma planted, and that was it. Right. But they'd get the guy in custody, and then they'd make notification. The fucking check squad would come out. They'd look at, Grandma Moses, who lost her fence and petunias, and they'd say, "Ma'am, how much do you think it's going to take to replace your fence?" Well, I don't know, like $3,000 or $4,000. Okay. If we paid you the $4,000 plus $4,000 for your troubles, and to replace Grandma's prized petunias, would you consider that fair compensation? Oh, yes, of course. Okay, here, just sign this waiver of liability. You're accepting this money, and that's it. That's your claim. And boom, write her a check there on the spot. This is the same unit that would say, when you get into a use of force, you need to just document it like it is. Like, you got to prevent people from pissing backwards later and trying to claim, this lady saying, "Oh, they destroyed the wall of my house and my whole foundation is broken," because as soon as a lawyer gets hold of this old lady and she finds out there's deep pockets involved, the story's going to change. Well, same thing with your suspect. As soon as your suspect thinks that his little black eye is going to get him into the county's deep pockets, all of a sudden you guys are going to be the most brutal, freaking heavy-handed Title 18 right violating motherfuckers ever.
Yep.
Now let me ask this. We actually have had someone who did a good amount of time in prison on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty interesting and eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
And we've asked the whole like question, you always hear, in movies and things like that, where, you go to prison, you're going to find Bubba, and Bubba's going to make you his bitch. Does that happen? Like dropping the soap type of stuff? Does that happen in your facility?
It's all voluntary.
Okay,
right.
That's exactly what he said. So
we've heard that, which
Yeah.
is it's not. They don't. If they do it, it's a punishment because there's so many
Right.
people that are just willing to do it anyway.
Well, the thing is, it's not against the law to willingly do it.
Right.
As long as they're not doing it for protection, commissary, or anything like that, it's not PREA. If they're
Right.
just, we love each other. Oh, all right.
So do you have a lot of that goes on?
We had a couple, few of them, but not. It's more in the females. A lot of that. But males, jail family or prison family found out.
I'm gonna have you back that up because you froze up a little bit. What were you saying?
When on the male side, when their either prison family or jail family found out, they were very concerned about their safety at that point because in their bylaws and stuff, homosexuality is, no, we don't do that.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no pride parade in jail. Really?
No.
I mean, you have the guys you have guys that are open about it that go to prison and go to jail.
Oh yeah.
And it is what it is. But most of the guys in jail don't truck with that. And
no.
Like, I mean, they might, on the down low.
Yeah, but for the most part, it's mainly females, and it's, I mean, we don't have that many females. We've only got 2 pods that are for females. So we, at the most, I think we can house somewhere around 80 females. And
do you just not get that many?
Or
do you fill up?
They get out pretty quick.
Southern hospitality, they don't hang women.
Yeah. And most of them are either drug related or few aggravated domestics.
Yeah, women don't commit crimes the same way men do, just like women don't commit suicide the same way men do. They don't commit homicide the same way men do. It's a different mentality, and anybody that tells you differently is selling something.
Right. But yeah, our
they tend to be
facility
grosser though.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. They smell awful when they come to jail. I don't know if they plan it. I don't know if they're like, all right, well, I'm gonna do this. So when I get there, they're not gonna want to strip search me.
I think it might be the kind of women that go to jail don't really have too many concerns about their hygiene. That's what I'm gonna go out on a limb and say. Like, men can go to jail because they did something stupid, and there's still like guys that'll shower and shave and do all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I would go out on a limb and say that a lot of the women that go to jail are the kind of women that aren't very concerned about their personal hygiene.
Yeah, but it's really bad though when they come in when they're with their boyfriend or husband, and you're like, oh.
That's so rare in California where I was a cop. You rarely, unless like she's going for drunk in public and he's going for DUI. Like,
right.
Most of the time, if it's a domestic or something, you ain't taking them both.
Yeah,
I've done it.
Most of ours are just one or the other. Basically, whoever calls, the other one's going to jail. It doesn't matter who's got the marks on them. Oh, well, she
really?
Called? Oh, yeah. It doesn't matter.
That's crazy.
Like we had this one guy come in.
The first one to cry uncle wins?
Pretty much. He came in, he was cut, he was scratched, he was bruised. The officer showed me a picture of her. There were no marks on her whatsoever. He was like,
Yeah.
and this guy's over here like, dude, I never touched her.
Yeah, that's a failure to the system right there.
And they're like, well, she said you did, so yeah.
Oh, damn.
I touched her fist with my face.
I'll tell you, I know somebody who, and this was in a different era. So for those of you that are like, how dare those cops?
Yeah.
This was a different era. This was pre OJ. So domestic violence laws were different, but he was involved in a domestic altercation with his soon to be ex-wife, in which she kicked him in the balls, just kicked him in the balls.
Yep.
And he did nothing but call the sheriff's department because he was a cop and he was like, bitch, fucking kick me in the balls. Before this goes sideways, I'm getting the deputies out here to handle it. And when they got there, they separated him and they interviewed him, right? The deputies knew that this guy was a cop and they pulled him aside and said, hey, listen, we could tell, like, based on your story and her story, they're not adding up, and we tend to believe what you're saying. Do you know, if you don't want to go to jail, we're not going to take her. He goes, no, I don't want to go to jail. It's fine, whatever. I just don't want this to continue. And they're like, okay, cool. We're not going to take her to jail. However, we should tell you that her story was that you threw her down the hallway. And he was like, what? And yeah. She said, you threw her down the hallway. We don't see a single mark on her. And based on the size difference between the two of you, had you thrown her down a hallway, we would tend to see something. And her story just doesn't add up. So we're going to let it go. But we're also giving you fair warning that this is the woman you're married to.
Right.
And this guy was like, you know, all she really has to do is call one time and I get the wrong cops, or she didn't even have to do that. She just has to call my captain. Yep. And, you know, anyway, so your state may be doing the use of force thing right, but they're certainly doing the domestic thing wrong.
Right.
Or at least your county. I don't know.
A few states, if the officer shows up, they take both of them because they didn't witness, the domestic. They didn't witness who did this or who did that. Because at that point, it's just, like I said, whoever calls first here.
I mean, it's not great, but it's better than just taking the one who calls first.
Right.
In California, the law changed to where the officers it's incumbent upon the officers to determine who the dominant aggressor was.
Right.
And who was causing the most damage, the most problem, who is the aggressive party in, right. She can be smacking the guy on the arms and beating him on the chest, trying to get him to back up. But if he's got her backed into a corner and he's threatening her and he pushes her one time and he's 6'5" and she's 5'2", well, we know who the dominant aggressor is there. And it doesn't matter if he calls the cops, she's not going to jail.
Right.
So I don't know. That's the one part about the officer discretion that I think they get right. So, well, Rick, I appreciate you coming on. As you know, we like to give our guests a chance to dedicate their episode to whomever they would like. And Chuck, I know we are going to tag team on this because, again, It's been a tough week for law enforcement, especially in our old neck of the woods. But Rick, why don't you go ahead and tell us who you want to dedicate your episode to?
I wanted to dedicate it to all of our fallen officers that passed away the past year from COVID.
You've had that many, huh?
We've had more than a handful.
Wow.
And like I said, we're not a huge department, so most of us are pretty close.
Is it correctional guys or patrol guys too?
Both.
Wow. So it's not from being confined in the jail or anything like that.
No. Matter of fact, nobody on my shift has even tested positive.
Wow.
The other shifts are like, I got 7 out from COVID.
But it's not happening anymore, right? You guys have stabilized.
No, it's kicking back up again.
Wow.
That's
crazy.
we had a pot on
now
lockdown.
You got
it. Yeah. Apparently I got it now. We had a pot on lockdown they just came off lockdown, the We just locked down the whole pod down.
Wow.
Females for COVID.
Wow.
And we probably got 7 officers out right now with COVID.
But they're not, they're just symptomatic. They're not like in the hospital.
No, they're perfectly fine.
Oh, good. Okay. That's what I'm saying. They're not, you don't have people still dropping from it. You have people still popping hot for it, but they're not dying.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're like, I don't feel sick. But they told me I was positive.
We're back to normal where you just get it and it feels like you have a cold.
Right.
Well, Chuck, I know we have a dedication, so why don't you go ahead and hit on ours?
All right. So this week in Southern California, it's been pretty rough week. At first, we had the CHP officer who was attacked. Suspect is now in custody, and I believe he's still in critical condition. So we're praying for him. And then yesterday, El Monte Police Department in California, Corporal Michael Paradis, and I'm sorry if I destroyed that name, and Police Officer Joseph Santana were shot and killed while responding to a domestic violence call at 10327 Garvey Avenue. At 4:45 p.m., Corporal Paradis and Officer Santana responded to a report of a possible stabbing between a boyfriend and girlfriend. When they arrived at the hotel room, they were met with gunfire. The suspect fled into the parking lot, and responding officers exchanged gunfire with the suspect. Both officers were taken to the Los Angeles County USC Medical Center, where they succumbed to their wounds. The subject was shot and killed, and Corporal Paradis served with the El Monte Police Department for 22 years. He's survived by his wife, son, and daughter. And Police Officer Joseph Santana was with the agency for 4 years. He served with the police department for 1 year previously and served at the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office. He is survived by his wife, daughter, and twin sons.
Ugh. Terrible.
Rough.
Now, we'll get into this on another episode because there's some things to debrief and discuss that, I think are important. But as of right now, our just hearts go out to the families of these officers and the partners of these officers. And at this point, the only positive takeaway is that our court systems will be spared the necessity of having a trial for this piece of shit.
Yeah, there was an officer in Meridian, Mississippi. Believe it was Wednesday or Thursday. Went to a domestic violence call. Pulls up in the driveway. Guy walks out of his house, who got fired from a police department the week before. So he was an ex-cop. Walks out of the door, shoots the guy in the head, uses his car to push the officer's car out of his driveway and takes off. And they caught him, and he just gave up. No fight, no nothing.
Fuck.
I'm glad I'm retired and I wouldn't have to deal with those kinds of things because for those of you that have never seen the movie The New Centurions or read the book, I will say this. Sometimes that no matter how fast somebody puts up their hands, that wasn't fast enough.
Right.
And, so anyway, well, we appreciate you coming on, Rick, and to the brothers and sisters from your department, but especially the two El Monte officers that were killed feloniously in the line of duty. Rest easy, brothers. We've got it from here. It sucks, and it doesn't get easier. And I'll say this, Chuck, I was at work the other day, and they were listening to the radio. I don't care. The guys want to listen to the radio. I just let them listen to it, whatever. But they were listening to a rock station, and Sound of Silence, the cover, right, by Disturbed, came on. And I realized that because that song has now become so closely associated with law enforcement memorials, that I can't listen to it the same way anymore. It actually, like, I hear that song, and now it just brought up all those feelings of the El Monte guys, friends I've lost, all that kind of stuff. So we dedicate our episodes to those that have fallen because we want to honor them, but also it's a reminder to those of you that are out there crushing crime and suppressing evil every day to stay safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank you all for listening today. If you guys like today's podcast, please go follow us on our Instagram at war_stories_official and our Facebook page at War Stories Podcast. If you already follow us and share our posts and our info, you can also go to the link in our bio on Instagram and Facebook to reach all of our socials, our media, and our website. Our podcast is on all major podcast streaming platforms as well as on our YouTube. If you want to support us, please go to our website at www.warstoriesofficial.com and grab some gear. We still have some Whoopie hoodies, shirts, patches, and stickers left. We'll be doing some summer gear. So you guys are going to be getting your votes in. And if you guys like the votes, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing a tank top and a hat. So
check it out.
Should be good. Yeah. If you want to be featured on our show and think you have a story or want to share your story, please go to booking.warstories@gmail.com and send me your story. I can get you booked. We are looking for law enforcement, corrections, dispatchers, fire, medics, and veterans. Also, if you're an RN, we haven't had an RN on for a while. Registered nurses and people who work in the medical facilities, we would greatly appreciate it if you would come on the show.
I'm going to reach out to one I know who's been. Maybe we'll get Aaron back on, and Aaron can talk. He's not in the ER anymore, so it'd be interesting to talk to him about what he's doing now. But especially follow up with everything he's been doing.
Right. That'd be great. And if you have a friend who you think would be a great fit, let them know about us. Give them our booking email. Again, thank you for the support and stay safe.
Yeah. Well, I think that about covers it. Rick, once again, thank you very much. And you got to follow up with us and let us know how you do on the test.
I will do.
Yeah, for sure. And then when you get into the academy, knock on wood.
Yep.
You got to let us know, and then we'll have you back on once you get out to patrol and you finish FTO, and we'll find out how bad it's been for you to transition from a lieutenant in the jail to a boot on the street. So,
right.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon. And until our next episode, come home with your shield or on it.